Hey all. Thank you to everyone who responded to the survey about what you guys wanted to read next. So you guys picked The Stranger by Albert Camus. Ken Casey's One Flew Over the Cuckoo's Nest was a close second. So we'll read that one after we finish this novel. So, but The Stranger is very short, so that won't take too much time at all. I kind of find it funny that you guys picked The Stranger, since the protagonist of this particular work is definitely probably the most unlikable out of all the possible protagonists you could have picked. But don't let my opinion influence your judgment in any way. You can make those judgments for yourself. Um, Interestingly, this novel was originally written in French, but it has been translated into many different languages over time. This is a very critically acclaimed novel. Um, Actually, reading this novel is still considered like a rite of passage among French teens. Um, before we continue, though, I just wanted to offer a little bit of a disclaimer here. So consider this presentation, as enrichment, right? You don't need to learn any new terms, and all the information I'm giving you here is purely supplementary. Okay, purely supplementary. All right. So moving on. So the first thing I really wanted to address with you guys is just a little bit of information about the author. Very brief summary of Albert Camus' life. Camus was born on November 7th, 1913, in a working class neighborhood in French Algeria. And his father actually died in World War I, and his family was crazy poor. His grandfather had moved to Algeria from France in search of a better life. So Camus was a second generation Algerian immigrant. As he grew up, Camus developed a love for football. And when I say football, I mean soccer, not American football. Um, Unfortunately, at a pretty relatively young age, he developed tuberculosis, which dashed his hopes to be a football player and later a soldier in World War II. They wouldn't let him enlist because he previously had tuberculosis. But because of this illness, he actually moved home to live with his uncle, and it was there that he started delving into different philosophical texts, and that really was the start of his career, both as a writer and a philosopher. One time, when his friend asked him whether he preferred football or the theater, he replied, "Football," which might seem strange to us for someone who is, a philosopher. Camus actually drew parallels among football, human existence, morality, and personal identity. For Camus, the simplistic morality of football kind of contradicted the complicated morality that he thought was imposed by authorities such as the state and the church. Um, and his tendency to draw kind of profound conclusions from simple things is kind of a recurring theme in his philosophy. He once said that everything I know about morality and the obligations of men, I owe it to football, which I find kind of amusing. Um, One thing I do want to mention is that Camus, as a philosopher, was an existentialist. So you should remember that term from the beginning of the year from our discussions of Kafka's Metamorphosis. Um, Side note, I would highly recommend reviewing those notes just very briefly, just for the purpose of interpreting this text, though it's certainly not necessary. Um, Now, I know what you're thinking. Existentialism can be super depressing. Um, Camus didn't really see it that way. He really took pleasure from just the simple things. He greatly enjoyed the pleasures of the physical world. In some of his texts, he wrote about just simple, like the profound simple pleasures of things, just such as sunshine, friendship, love, relationships, nature.